WNTN Radio Boston. Welcome back to my show. This is your host, Viviana Dragani, and today my guest is Herb Guggenheim. He worked as a teacher and psychotherapist, and he's the author of 2 books of poetry and 3 novels, Resurrection 2020 being his latest. Welcome to our show.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So, first and foremost, what is the premise of your book?
Well, the premise of the book is I would call it a soft science fiction book. It's science fiction, but it's very light on the science and heavy on the fiction. And it's a book about 4 time travelers. The main character is a professor, and he has a nostalgia for the 1964 1965 New York World's Fair. He went to the fair as a child, and it has come to him in a dream. He has remembered it in a dream, and so he decides that he wants he wants to learn everything about the fair, and so he's been acquiring souvenirs, and he's been acquiring um, videos and books and literature about the fair. And at a certain point, 2 strangers approach him and they say, "We have a time machine." Well, they don't say we have a time machine. They don't tell him it's a time machine, but they approach him with this time machine, and he and 2 of his students and a friend of his who is a cognitive scientist all somehow get sucked back into 1964 to the New York World's Fair. And the fair turns out to be something of a nightmare. The fair is not the sweet and innocent thing that it was thought to be at the time. And so they have to contend, the 4 characters have to contend with 2 psychopaths. They have a psychopath who is 17 years old and who is assaulting women at the fair. And they also have another psychopath who is 18 years old, who is uh, someone that you all might recognize. It's the former president of the United States, the 45th president of the United States, the one whose name we don't pronounce. And he was 18 years old at the time of the fair, and he lived in Queens, New York, which is where the fair was held. And so he, in the book, takes a date to the fair, and so we see him both as a teenager, and then later he is as an adult transported back to the fair too. So the characters have to deal with the one psychopath that we don't know and the one psychopath that we do know. And that's the premise of the book. The World's Fair was huge. It was 646 acres, over 1 square mile in size, and there were 66 nations represented at the fair. World's fairs bring nations from all over the world together. They um, they bring nations and industries, and also in this case, they brought states, individual states of the United States, and they brought religions. They had the Vatican there. They had the Mormons there, um, Protestants. All religions were also gathered at the fair. So this was a huge undertaking. Think of Disney World or think of Epcot at Disney World, and then magnify it by about 20 times, and you've got the size of this fair.
Okay, thank you. And for our listeners, what is a World's Fair and why are World's Fairs significant?
Okay, they're significant. The first World's Fair was held in 1851 in London. And there was a structure built specifically, Prince Albert uh, built a structure called the Crystal Palace that was where the first World's Fair was held. And he brought together industries and nations from all over the world, and he brought them together in this structure. And people from all walks of life, rich people, poor people, all kinds of people in London and all over the world came to visit the fair. Then there was another fair, I believe, in 1889 that was held in Paris, and that's where the Eiffel Tower was built. And the Eiffel Tower was only supposed to last for a year, and they were going to tear it down. But everyone saw how beautiful it was and what a landmark it was. And so it has remained up for 150 years or however many years it's been. Um, so World's Fairs are significant because they're kind of like the Olympics. They bring all the nations of the world together, and then they also bring, as I said before, industries. And in the case of the 1964 fair, they brought religions together, and they're significant for just being a huge cultural movement. 52 million people attended the New York World's Fair over the 2 seasons that it was held. I should say also, I should mention that I believe in Dubai right now, they're having a World's Fair in the very hot country of Dubai.
Mm.
Um, they're having a really lavish World's Fair, but I don't think many people are coming to it because it's hard to get to Dubai. But I believe that they're having a fair there now.
Interesting. Thank you. So you said a lot about good characters in your novel. Can you tell us something about the bad characters?
Yeah, well, I already started. One of the bad characters is named Ricky, and he is a people don't become sociopaths until they pass the age of 18. So he's 17 and he's a sociopath in the making. And he does all the things that sociopaths do. He starts fires, he hurts animals, he and what he's contemplating doing at this point at the World's Fair is he sees a couple of girls that are working at the fair, and he's contemplating raping these 2 girls. And so he's a really twisted character. Now, the interesting thing is that his life kind of parallels the life of the other sociopath that I told you about, the 45th president of the United States to be. He also um, has does very twisted things at the fair, and then he does, of course, twisted things in the present as president of the United. Well, and the book takes place in 2019 and in 1964. So in 2019, you see him doing twisted things like not wanting to sell javelin missiles to the Ukrainians and stuff like that. So he's twisted in his own way, and I kind of want to draw a parallel between the one psychopath um, that we don't know and the one that we do know. Um, I kind of want to suggest that they have some similar qualities.
Okay, thank you. And does your book address any social or political issues?
Yes, one of the main characters in the book is a man named Marcel Miller. He's a 22-year-old student, and he is African American, and so he he reacts to the kind of the police brutality both in the present, the present of the novel, which is 2019, and he reacts to the brutality of 1964. He is unfairly imprisoned when he goes to the fair. Um, he's uh, put in a jail cell for a while. The fair had a huge amount of security, and they also had holding cells for people. So he gets imprisoned, and he doesn't know when he's going to get out. He isn't charged with any crime. He's just um, he's just being held on suspicion of doing something that he didn't do. So there's a lot about racism in the book. There's a lot about uh, racism both in 2019 and in 1964. And there's also issues with sexual identity. One of the characters in the book is a trans woman, and I never really come out and say that she's trans, but but she I hint at it in the book. I hint at the fact that she's trans, and that's never really spoken out loud in the book. But so sexual identity is another social issue that's discussed, and also corporate greed and corporate uh, the idea that corporations are polluters and defile the environment and so forth and so on. That's also mentioned in the book. The corporations that displayed at the fair were some of them were General Motors, IBM, General Electric, um, AT&T. They all had huge amounts of money to burn on creating rides and exhibits at the fair. So at one point, the characters are going on a ride at the General Motors pavilion, and they're passing this world. They're being shown a world of the future, and they're how do I want to put this? They're seeing a world the way that General Motors wanted the American public to want to see the world. They're seeing a world where people are building highways through the rainforest, and where they're uh, building huge cities with multi-lane, 16-lane highways and stuff like that. So so you get this corporate vision of what the world was that they wanted people to see in 1964, how they thought that the world was going to develop over the next 50 years.
Awesome. And where can we find your amazing books?
Okay, my amazing books, they are amazing too. I have to say that they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Well, you'll be interested to know this because I think you have listeners in Italy. So
Right,
I looked, and they're on Amazon IT in Italy. They're on
right.
Amazon.com in the
Mm-hmm.
United States. You can get them from Amazon. There's an audiobook version of my novel, and that's available on Audible and Amazon and iTunes. But they're all available on Amazon.com, and they can be ordered in the United States from any bookstore also. But it's better to go to Amazon.com because it's easier, it's faster way to get them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Herb Guggenheim, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I hope to hear from some of your listeners. Take care.
Bye bye.